Hey everyone, Lisa Salvatore here to talk to you about the beginning of May and the full moon lunar eclipse that we have in the sign of Scorpio on May 5th. Today that I'm recording this video, it is April 25th. And I wanted to get this out for you as soon as I can. The energies have definitely been intense. It has been extremely busy. I know that we are all feeling this powerful energy. We are right in between eclipses. And this time period always tends to feel very strange, a little eerie even, otherworldly. We can feel a little off physically. These energies absolutely affect our physical body. They affect us emotionally. They affect our sleep. They affect us spiritually, of course. There's a lot going on in the month of May. So I'm going to talk about just the first portion of May, and then I'll come back and do the second portion of May, because May is a pretty big month astrologically. And I actually feel like there's a lot of positive motion and positive movement throughout the month of May. But again, it's big. So first things first, if you are new to my channel or to me, welcome. I am Lisa Salvatore. I am a psychic and I am an astrologer. I like to call myself a conscious astrologer. I help you to work with what is unconscious, to bring it to the conscious, and help you to redirect for more positive outcomes moving forward. You can find all of the sessions that I offer right on my website. I have linked it here in the description box. I have just opened up some appointments, so if you're interested, you can find that there. Also, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified as I upload new videos. And if you've been with me for a while, welcome back. I thank you for being here. I truly appreciate all of your love and support. Now, as you know, I put out a lot of content and I put most of it out there for free. And I love to do that. I love to help you guys as best as I can. But I want to tell you that if you are more interested in going more deeply into the energies of 2023, both collectively and by sign, I have a full-on detailed, very detailed report for the year of 2023. I do it in 3-month increments. You can find that also linked in the description box below. And it is still helpful to listen back. In fact, I would argue that sometimes it's more helpful to track back from January through now. Again, so if you're interested in that, that link is below. That is for purchase though. That's if you just want more insight. Okay, so let's talk about the month of May. Like I mentioned, today's April 25th that I'm recording this. April 20th, we had a very powerful new moon, total solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. And if you want to go back and listen to that video, you can do so. I've also linked that one in the description box. But that was a new moon at the 29th degree of Aries, very powerful energy, strong energy of new beginnings and moving forward. But there's definitely a level of anxiety attached to this, high energy, electrifying almost. Could also be very exciting and exhilarating. Now, as we build up towards May 5th to the total lunar eclipse that we have in the sign of Scorpio, the energy is just going to continue to feel more intense. Right now, as I speak, the sun is currently in Taurus and it is lined up with the North Node in Taurus. This is an alignment that we have not seen for quite some time, decades, and will not see again for quite some time. And the reason why this is significant is because the sun is the center of everything, okay? The North Node is the destiny of the collective. And also, personally, it speaks to where we are headed. What are our core values? What makes us feel safe? What makes us feel secure? What we might still need to let go of in order to get to that? So the North Node's in Taurus, which means that the South Node is exactly opposite in the sign of Scorpio. And that is where we're going to have this next eclipse, this full moon lunar eclipse. So there's a really strong energy on letting go of any and all toxicity, mind, body, spirit. The axis of Taurus and Scorpio, the opposite signs, teaches us about Taurus, which is all about our material security. It's also what we value, what we hold dear. And then the opposite sign of Scorpio is more about the spiritual security. And it's what we hold on to, what we hold tightly to, what we cling to, that may or may not be the best for us. This also houses our compulsions, our anxieties, our fears, the deepest parts of us that we don't necessarily like to let out, because they might scare us or because we may have to deal with trauma that we don't want to deal with, or drama that we don't want to deal with. So just know that we are all feeling this energy. We're all feeling a little off. So May 1st, we start right out the gate. The planet Pluto will station retrograde. Pluto is currently at 0 degrees of Aquarius. It is coming off of a square with the sun in Taurus, which again indicates some power struggles, power dynamics coming into play in our personal relationships, professional relationships, internally. We could be feeling it within ourselves. And now Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius is going to station retrograde on May 1st. Now, it's also important to mention that Pluto is the planetary ruler of the sign of Scorpio. So Pluto is very pronounced around the time of this incoming eclipse, around this first part of May, especially because, again, Pluto rules Scorpio. This eclipse is a south node eclipse in Scorpio, which is all about release. It's all about letting go. And Pluto asks us to do the internal work of going into the shadow. So again, it's extremely important to pay attention to what is going on around you in your current reality. And more importantly, what is going on inside of you? What is going on emotionally? What is going on spiritually? Because this is telling you a story. This is a part of a bigger story. What is being unearthed for you in the realm of control, power, fear, obsession, all of the things that we don't like to talk about, all of the things that we find about ourselves that aren't necessarily pretty, jealousy, what makes us feel inadequate, what keeps us up at night, intimacy issues, all of that falls under Pluto. And Pluto's about to station retrograde. So Pluto invites us to go deep into introspection. It's a great time to go into some form of therapy if you've been thinking about that. So really feel into what's happening for you, no matter how subtle. And Pluto will be retrograde until October 11th, just FYI. Great time for self-analysis. Now, if your birthday falls between January 19th and January 22nd of any year, really pay attention. Take that message of what I just said about Pluto, take that message and really tune into it, because the sun, if you were born between January 19th and January 22nd, the sun would be between 0 and 2 degrees of Aquarius, which is extremely significant and pronounced, as Pluto is going to hover in this degree patch for quite some time. So it's going to be really significant for you and powerful. A key word for Pluto is power. So this can be very positive. This can be extremely transformative. It typically is. But remember, with Pluto, we deconstruct to reconstruct. So it's a rebirthing process. So pay close attention to that. Now, on the very same day, on May 1st, the planet Mercury, who is currently retrograde until May 14th, Mercury is in the sign of Taurus, retrograde, and Mercury is going to have its Cazimi moment, which is basically a very auspicious moment, a very strong point of the retrograde where Mercury actually passes through the heart of the sun. That's what Cazimi means. Mercury passes through the heart of the sun. And so spiritually speaking, we could receive a piece of information that's extremely powerful for us, that helps us to get some clarity in a time where we feel like clarity is not that easy to come through. Again, Mercury is the messenger planet. Mercury is all about communication. It's important to also mention that while Mercury's retrograde, we're being extra mindful, which is a key word for Mercury, to make sure that all of our data is backed up, to make sure that we're being very conscious with our communication, that we're slowing down, that we're taking a step back, that we're honoring all frustrations as indications of what we still need to work through, what we might need to strengthen, what we might need to revise or edit. That's what Mercury retrograde is all about. And when you look at it from that perspective, it's not so bad. I mean, yeah, sure, there's challenging things that crop up with it. I have had a doozy of a Mercury retrograde so far, and I know many of us have. But at the same time, there have been moments of clarity through the confusion. But again, on May 1st, 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, Mercury will pass through the heart of the sun. We will have our Mercury Cazimi. So pay close attention to, especially like the 30th through the 3rd of May, to your dreams. Because remember, Mercury delivers messages from all layers of consciousness. So it's not just in our waking life, it's also in our sleeping life. It's also intuitively. So pay really close attention to what comes through for you. All right, and then we get to the eclipse, the total lunar eclipse. It takes place on May 5th in the sign of Scorpio. So if there's ever a time to detox, this would be the time to truly aim for that, to truly think about that, because Scorpio is the sign of detox. It is the sign of toxicity, and I don't mean that in the negative sense of the word, but Scorpio will show us what we need to release. This particular eclipse will highlight a part of our story, especially if we are holding on to something too tightly. We will be reminded of why we might need to let go of this. And again, when it comes to eclipses, I always say, let go or be dragged. Eclipses are known for a big time exits and entrances, starts and stops, beginnings and endings. Sometimes it's a clean sweep. Sometimes it's disruptive. Sometimes it's the best form of chaos that we could have ever asked or hoped for. But one thing is certain, eclipses bring in change. Now, this particular eclipse, I invite you to track back to November of 2021, because back in November of 2021, the 18th and 19th to be exact, we had a lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. It was a Taurus full moon. So we want to track back to that time period, and we want to look at all that has gone on in our lives, and maybe something that began at that time or was very pronounced for you at that time. What part of your story was highlighted? What page was bookmarked? Let's look at it that way. Again, November of 2021, and then think about it as we move throughout the months and all of 2022 and to where we are right now around this lunar eclipse. Guarantee you'll find a parallel. Remember, even if you're not a Scorpio, even if you don't have planets in Scorpio, we all have Scorpio somewhere in our chart. So this eclipse will be impacting everybody in a different area. For some of us, it's going to feel very significant and very enhanced, while for others, maybe not so much. You may see it more in the reality of other people in your reality. Now, who will be most impacted by this eclipse? Any of the fixed signs, so Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, especially if it's your sun, your moon, or your rising sign, your north and south node, and especially if any of those planets and placements fall between 10 and 20 degrees of any of the fixed energies. Again, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Big changes. Ready or not, here they come, right? Remember, we have to let go to grow. Positively speaking, this is a really good time to do a detox, like I said, physically. If you've been wanting to cut out sugar, if you've been wanting to cut out alcohol, whatever it is, you're going to feel extremely pulled to do so. You may get so aggravated that you have no choice but to do so. Also, I want to mention, it's a full moon. Full moons are always really big. They bring up a lot to the surface, a lot of emotion, a lot that has been going on under the surface for the previous weeks of the lunar cycle. It all comes bubbling up under these energies. Now, this is also a lunar eclipse, so think about this as a super full moon, okay? It's a full moon magnified times 10. Yes, it illuminates the night sky, but it also illuminates our soul. It illuminates our psyche. It brings things up, it brings things out, and we can find ourselves highly emotional, highly sensitive, for better or worse. It is in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is a very intuitive water sign, very, very tuned into the undercurrents. This full moon also takes place at 1:48 p.m. Eastern Time at 14 degrees and 58 minutes of Scorpio. I'm sorry, guys. I'm currently not in my normal area, so I don't have my capabilities of sharing the chart with you, which is why I'm not showing you the chart, so I apologize for that. But I want to just pull focus onto the fact that there is a very unpredictable element to this full moon, to this eclipse. Now, eclipses are always unpredictable. They're always a wild card. But this one is lined up with Uranus, the planet of disruption and shock and change, rebellion, freedom, chaotic change sometimes. Don't be surprised if the weather patterns are extremely wonky around this eclipse. For frame of reference, Uranus is at 18 degrees of Taurus, and this full moon is where the sun and the moon are opposite each other, both at 14 degrees and 58 minutes of Taurus, the sun, and Scorpio, the moon. So Uranus at 18 is conjunct the sun opposite the moon. So Uranus is activating this eclipse, okay? I can pretty much guarantee that we're going to see some really wonky weather patterns, and I hate to say it, and I hope that I'm wrong, but Uranus does rule over earthquakes, volcanoes, explosions, eruptions. Hopefully not of the literal kind, but it wouldn't be surprising because we are dealing with Scorpio, which is the opposite sign of Taurus. The sun is in Taurus, which is all about the earth. Uranus is the god of lightning. He's electrifying. Again, hopefully none of this is literal, but it can be. Now, I also want to pull focus onto the fact that, remember, Mercury's retrograde really messing things up. So again, back up your files. Be careful with beverages around your devices. I'm being serious. Anything electric. Be a little more mindful about that because there is the potential to be more clumsy, more chaotic, and have some really silly, stupid accidents. Mercury retrograde is also lined up with the North Node around this eclipse. So I also want to stress the fact that the powers of manifestation are very strong. Mercury is all about how we communicate and express. It's the way that we think. So the minute you find yourself going into those negative spaces where you're focusing on what you don't want or what you don't have or lack, you have to do what you can to consciously shift that because let me tell you, the universe is always listening. The divine is always listening, whatever you believe in, okay? And during these times, this specific eclipse, okay, I want you to retrain yourself that every time you go down that spiral and you say something negative about yourself, I want you to spin it back to positive. You want to be vibing on what you have, what you want, what is abundant for you. And if you're not feeling that way, then what would it take to get you to feel that way? What would you have to let go of? What toxicity needs to go in the form of the way that you're thinking, your own habits and behaviors? Think about that. Because again, the powers of manifestation are really strong. Now, I'm also going to stress that I do not work with this full moon energy. I like to just stay in a state of flow, surrender and flow. Because again, it's a wild card. Uranus is in the mix, even more of a wild card. I'm going to reference my quote that I love, that I always say, which is, while we certainly cannot outsmart fate, we sure as heck can have a hand in it. So again, take that as you wish. Take very good care of your physical body because we are all feeling it. Make sure you are grounding yourself. Get out into nature. Make sure that you're working with your breath, conscious breathing. Drink water. Rest as much as possible. It is not the time to push yourself, even if you have an abundance of energy. I actually made a video a couple years back about grounding techniques. I'm going to post that in the description box as well because you may find that helpful. Some of the things in there are quite obvious. Some of them are not. So hopefully you'll try some of them and let me know how you feel. But yes, grounding is extremely important. Meditation, music, connecting to people that you love, connecting to people who support you. Now, Mars in Cancer is also squaring Jupiter. It's a separating square, so they're moving away from each other, but it's still a square, so it's still a little tense. People are still going to be a little cranky. Again, careful with the driving, always, but more so around these energies. Also, Jupiter is moving toward an almost perfect square to Pluto. When Jupiter and Pluto meet up by square aspect, it can be harsh. Hopefully it won't be. So just be mindful. You may feel that energy of harshness when it comes to your relationships. You may see it with the people around you. You may see it if you're traveling. So again, just be extra mindful, extra cautious. It goes a really, really long way. Positively speaking, Venus in Gemini is sextiling Jupiter, which is really, really lovely. So on one hand, some of our relationships could get a nice boost of energy, but we want to be careful because it is very powerful energy. Full moons are always a time to live more consciously and more intentionally. And again, this particular one, because it's a full moon lunar eclipse, even more so. Let's drive that point home. Honestly, this is the perfect time to do release work. I know I said that I don't like to work with full moons, but when I say that, I mean, I don't like to charge anything under full moon energy. I know a lot of people make moon water. I don't do that, but I wouldn't do that either under this full moon. Charging your crystals, probably wouldn't, because you're charging it with this tremendous energy and we don't know, it's a wild card, so I probably wouldn't do it. But if you want to meditate and reflect upon what you would like to release, what you would like to let go of, or any trauma that you might want to work through, this is the perfect time to actually sit with that, especially as Jupiter is moving towards that clash with Pluto, because we'll probably be bringing it up for you anyway, at least on the internal level. Again, as this eclipse takes place in the sign of Scorpio, think about where you need to release, or perhaps you may need to drop a grudge if you've been holding a grudge against somebody or something. Again, that forgiveness is not necessarily about the other person or people or situation involved. It's more for you, for your soul. Allow the universe to bring in change for you, especially where you know you need it, but you've been holding on to avoiding it. And don't be afraid to stand up for yourself where you need to. Another big, powerful message of these energies. Okay, now let's talk about where this eclipse is going to take place for you by your sign. Again, I encourage you to follow your rising sign for most accuracy. Okay, Aries rising. This full moon will take place in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house that is naturally ruled by the sign of Scorpio. So there's a very strong letting go influence here that is happening for you. Now, the 8th house also rules over deep, deep, deep intimacy, bonding, finances, other people's finances, it's loans, it's banking, it's debt, it's taxes, it's really deep stuff. So this full moon could be lighting up these areas. Now, the 8th house is also the house traditionally associated with physical death, but I'm looking at this more as metaphorical death. So what needs to die so that you can bring in new life? Taurus rising. This lunar eclipse takes place in your 7th house of partnership, contracts, negotiations, mutuality. This is your relationship house. You have been going through a very deep detox, a very deep purging process, a very deep process of renewal and regeneration, and having to truly integrate and honor change. And that's not easy for Taurus. So during this eclipse, you're likely going to be faced with more of that, but I think it could be really powerful for you. Be open. Gemini rising, this lunar eclipse takes place in your 6th house. You, more than a lot of the other signs, I would really caution you to watch your physical health, watch your nervous system, because you may feel really ramped up under these energies. But positively speaking, it's a great time to incorporate a new health routine. It's a great time to incorporate a new habit into your everyday life, to drop a habit that you know isn't serving you. Maybe you want to alter your work routine. So release what isn't working for you here. Cancer rising, this full moon takes place in your 5th house of creativity, love, romance, and also children. Where are you holding on to tightly in these areas? Leo rising, this full moon eclipse takes place in your 4th house of family, both family of origin and also chosen family. It's about your foundations, emotional, physical, and spiritual. It's about your literal home. What feels like home to you? What is your security system? Where is your security? This is a very heart-centered energy for you, Leo. You may find yourself crying with the littlest of provocation. This could also be really nostalgic and really good for your family relationships, for all of your relationships. You may find yourself more gushy and mushy. You may also find yourself wanting to end specific relationships. Pretty powerful eclipse for you. Virgo rising, this full moon takes place in your 3rd house of communication, communication projects, your siblings, your cousins, those that are like siblings and cousins to you, your community. This is also about short distance travel. So pay a lot of attention to your communication, especially as Mercury, your ruling planet, is retrograde. So yes, release, but release wisely. You may find yourself getting into some kind of heated debates with those in your life, so watch out for that. Libra rising, this eclipse takes place in your second house of your finances, your personal finances, what you value, your self-worth, your self-esteem. A really strong time to align with your core values. Remember, your ruling planet is Venus. Venus also rules Taurus, and the sun is currently in Taurus, lined up with the North Node around this eclipse. So it's really encouraging you to get real about what you value and what works for you. And don't just stay with certain people in your life that you might be working with. Don't just stay there out of obligation. Don't just say yes when you want to say no. Again, I feel like it's time for a lot of the Libra risings to clean house in certain areas. It's way overdue. Honor yourself. Own your confidence. Scorpio rising, this eclipse takes place in your first house. This is very significant for you. This is very powerful for you. This is all about you. This is about your self-expression. This is about your energy. This is about your personality. This is about your relationships. This is about me. This is about we. Very strong energy. You have been, along with Taurus, clearing karma like a badass for the last 2 years. And it's going to feel that much more intense because we're at the very last legs of it, meaning the South Node is actually going to exit the sign of Scorpio in July. So you still have some time. And we're also going to have a lunar eclipse in your opposite sign of Taurus in October. So we're not done with you yet, Scorpio. Transformation. I think this is really powerful for you. So stay in the light. Stay in the higher vibration. Keep vibing on what you want. Sagittarius rising, this eclipse takes place in your 12th house, so this is a great time for you to do internal work. It's a great time for rest. Like Gemini, you definitely need your rest. You definitely do not want to push your health right now. I feel like a lot of the Sag risings need to actually incorporate a physical cleanse under these energies, so think about that. Capricorn rising, this eclipse takes place for you in your 11th house of friends and networking and groups and community. It's also the house of our hopes, dreams, and wishes. So what has not worked out for you that it's time to let go of? Focus on the good. Focus on what is working for you. And remember that you do need friends. You do need to open up to others. This is a powerful eclipse to do so, but do so wisely because the energies are strong. Aquarius rising, this eclipse takes place for you in your 10th house. This is powerful. This is your career house. This is a powerhouse. This is all about your public image, your reputation, the work that you're doing out in the world. You can find some sweeping changes taking place here for you, Aquarius. You could be the one instigating these changes. The winds of change are upon you. However you look at that, I feel like a lot of you are actually really going to be starting your own business, and this is going to be huge for you. So roll with it right now. Pisces rising, this eclipse takes place for you in your 9th house of long distance travel and philosophy and the higher mind, higher education, expansion of our beliefs, our faith. It's also a house of justice. So where might you need to advocate for yourself where you have not been? Something about this is likely going to be really illuminated for you under this lunar eclipse energy. It's not a coincidence. Journaling will be very strong for you under this full moon. It's going to feel very emotional and very sensitive for you, and you may have a hard time even getting your words out. So just wait until this energy passes, but sit with whatever comes up for you in these areas. And now might be the time to let go of a long-lasting belief system that you know is not serving you, especially if it roots back to childhood. Okay, so there you have it for all 12 signs. I hope that this was helpful. Again, I wasn't even going to do this video, but I figured, I know last time I was exhausted, I had a lot going on, and a lot of people on my Instagram were like, oh my gosh, I missed the solar eclipse. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I just never recorded it. I forgot because there's been so much going on, but I do always want to get these out for you. So anyway, I hope that this helps. Be sure to comment below, let me know how you're feeling, and you can find all my info in the description box. Again, ground yourself, hydrate, stay close to people that feel like sunlight, as cheesy as that sounds. Don't feel like you have to go it alone. During these times, we can feel more comfortable in isolation, and then that can actually make us feel more isolated. So we have to remind ourselves to connect to others. I practice what I preach with that. I love my own company, but sometimes I'm like, darn, I just feel a little lonely right now. And then I realize, well, I haven't called anybody back in 3 weeks. Maybe that's why. So again, you know, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but just pay attention to your own habits, your own behaviors. Again, that is what this Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse is illuminating. Okay, guys, take care. Bye.